Whatsoever! Nobody cares! Sorry, he really bugged me.
That's quite alright, Vegeta. I'm sure Gargamel would bother any of us. But, anyways, welcome to the next episode of Dale's Tale, the remake, part 39. And this is going to be another big one because we're going to be wrapping it up here with 42 to possibly 41 parts. It really depends. But, we're on to part 39 of this massive tale, and we resume the story now. Now, Rick runs towards Alexandria after being told by Denise there's something there, with Sam right behind him to see by their doorstep Jessie Anderson, who is still alive. But something they notice right away about her that's different is that she's alive for one thing, and doesn't have a bullet mark near her head, but an eye patch clearly indicating that the shot must have gone to her eye. But before asking questions, Rick and Sam run right up to the house and grab Jessie and twirl her in a bear hug because they're just so overcome with happiness and just surprise at the fact that she's alive. Rick especially, because look at who he's become in this story. Rick, he just cannot describe how happy and sad he is that Jessie is alive, and is asking so many questions as the fact that, how did you manage to live? I saw you get shot near the head. But Jessie says that, honestly, she thought that she was dead too. But whenever she came to, she was in the room with Denise, and she said that she was able to save her life, but the bullet did hit her eye. So in this story, I gave Jessie Carl's eye takeout. Except, it happened under way different circumstances than Carl losing his eye in the original. But yeah, just pointing that out there. And she is happy to see that Rick and Sam are so happy to see her alive, she says jokingly, and is really happy that they are here, and doesn't ask about Ron specifically, which definitely confuses Rick and Sam, but she also smiles, saying that there's another reason why she's very happy to be alive. And Rick picks up on this and is like, yeah, that's right. You were going to tell me something, or at least I think you were hiding something before Pete showed up and everything happened. And now, since we've taken care of everything at the satellite outpost with the saviors, now I want to know, what were you keeping from me before that? And Jessie says, you got me. I was keeping something from you. And it was a reason why I didn't want to go with you guys to the satellite outpost to deal with the saviors. Not only because I knew you could handle Ron, and because I knew you all could handle it as a whole, but there's another specific reason as to why I didn't want to go with you guys. And it's because, and she pauses for a sec, it's because I'm pregnant. And turns away smiling. Rick is first at shock and disbelief, and it turns to utter excitement and overjoy. And Jessie goes to Sam after this, and Rick enjoys himself cheering for this moment and everything. And Jessie goes to Sam and is like, hey Sam, now you're gonna have a baby brother or sister here pretty soon. Hopefully we can spark our new family here better than it was before with Ron and Pete. And once again, now she mentions Ron, but she still doesn't ask where he is. And even though Rick wants to know why she's doing this, he just lets her talk to Sam, and they enjoy the moment and everything about this. You know what I'm saying? And Sam is definitely happy about this. He doesn't wish to think about Ron and Pete because obvious reasons, but he is very happy to, like, hear this revelation and see his mother alive. You know how a little kid would react in that moment. Or at least I think you guys would. And then Jessie turns to Rick and is like, I bet you're wondering why I have not talked about Ron or anything like that. And it's because I heard about what happened while I was out. And I don't blame you for what you did. Ron, even though he was my son, he had it coming just like Pete. And I'm sure we couldn't have stopped him anymore if we tried to. We all did our best. That's why I'm hoping we can start over with this new family and this baby. And Rick says he couldn't agree more. Now, for the Eugene and Abraham trip, Abraham's obviously dead, so Spencer and Rosita are taking the place, with Eugene to go to the bullet factory. And Eugene and Rosita wouldn't argue here like Eugene and Abraham, because Abraham is the one who punched him, and we've had so much change in the story. So, they ain't gonna fight here. They're more or less gonna talk about the past and how to help here with the bullet factory and what to do. And they just talk about, like, what's happened, and they're tired of losing people, and how they both sympathize with each other for who Abraham was, how he ultimately did get himself killed, and why it was sad that it had to end up that way, even if it had to end up that way, and how they're just both trying to keep going on, honestly. That's pretty much the best that they could talk about. And like I said, they're not going to fight here because there's not really a reason for them to fight. And Spencer is there because, for one thing, they're in a relationship, Spencer and Rosita, obviously. And for another, he's there just as an extra person to help out on this journey, because walkers, different people, I don't know why I'm explaining this small moment, but it's just justification on why he's even here. And Daryl and Beth would take Rosita's spot in going with Denise on the run. And this time, Denise is shot in the head and not crossbowed in the head, because Daryl was never kidnapped and Dwight is dead. So who in the crap shot Denise? Well, Little Timmy and his brigade are the ones who shot Denise, because they never met them yet, and they're still alive. This is a later development with Little Timmy and his brigade, to my knowledge at least. But, yeah, this is where they come into play. With Spencer, Rosita, and Eugene all capture. Not just Eugene this time. So this time, the Saviors have more leverage. So, yeah, this is a definitive big moment for Little Timmy and the brigade. And the leader's like, you guys screwed up. Shouldn't have killed all those people back at that satellite outpost. Really thought you were done with us, huh? Well, now we're done with you. Time for you guys to drop all your stuff and lead us to wherever it is you call home. Or these 3 people on the ground die, and then you, and then whoever we want back at your little complex. And let's be honest, that's how they would be in that situation. They were a bunch of jerks. But just then, someone tells them to stop. And this is Dale, who I bet a lot of you weren't expecting to appear in these circumstances, but he showed up as extra insurance on his own accord, not because someone told him to, but because he was just we all know how perceptive Dale was. Like, let's be real here. And with how perceptive he's been, especially in this story. So the knowledge that Saviors could still be around, even though it seemingly looked like they vanquished all of them, it would definitely cross Dale's mind. And the leader is just irritated that this happened, because now he feels that Dale showing up has just given him more incentive to literally kill every single person here, along with Dale, and even more people back at Alexandria. Because once again, that's how they would be here. But this also gives Eugene the opening to beat the leader's, private area, since Dwight isn't here to take that unfortunate, little moment. It's gotta be the leader of Little Timmy and his brigade, which I always thought was Little Timmy. Some call him Bud, some call him Little Timmy. Who the frick cares? It's the leader, alright? But this moment, and Dale showing up, also provide the opportunity for Spencer and Rosita to get back their weapons and get back into the fold, with Daryl and Beth getting their own crossbows and getting everyone to turn their weapons straight at the Saviors. So Dale ultimately created a good moment to get their leverage back. And Dale's like looking at them all now, like, now do you guys want to listen and, not do anything stupid like all your other Savior friends? Because now would be a very good opportunity. Now, I'm sure he would word it like that, but I don't think he would say that specifically. But we all know he most likely word it like that. And either that, or he would give, a look that would indicate, exactly those, sentiments. But the leader, he ain't gonna apply. If anything, he just whacks Eugene to the side, disregarding the fact that what just happened. And with that, guns Spencer to kingdom come. Literally shooting him with every bullet in both of his guns. And yeah, this should have been a dead giveaway that the second he whacked Eugene down, stuff was gonna get bad. And Dale cannot believe what he is just seeing. Not only did the Saviors show little regard to being completely, their advantage taken away, not only are these guys so heartless to do this to Spencer, but they just show little regard for, anything. And Dale is just getting, you cannot imagine the PTSD and just everything he's feeling in this moment towards them. And Rosita, after this, you can obviously imagine what she's gonna do after Spencer gets blown to Kingdom Come. Rosita and everybody else, specifically Rosita, gun the Saviors, and Little Timmy and his brigade are wasted right then and there, because they wouldn't be as lucky as Dwight and them were to escape because of circumstances and who they were. And Dale just feels utterly, completely remorseful and sorry for Rosita. She's lost 2 lovers, and one was shot even more mercilessly than Abraham. And Rosita, she can sense that Dale probably thinks that this is his fault because, he came in and that spurred the whole thing, but he honestly saved their lives. And while not saving Spencer's in the end, he meant good intentions, and he always has. So she, by no means, shape, or form, blames him for what just happened. If anything, she thanks him because he saved the rest of them, even if Spencer died. Because if he hadn't shown up, they would have all died. But she does break down crying, though, because after losing 2 lovers, especially Abraham way earlier on, she's just sick and tired of losing people, and the way that Spencer and Abraham were taken out, it just really messes with Rosita, under character. And Dale would hug her and be like, yeah, I'm sure we're all sick and tired of losing people. And this would be a good moment for the both of them to really, not get together, obviously, or a Dale and Andrea moment from the comics or the show, but just for the both of them to, air out their grievances. Or not grievances, but feelings. You get what I'm saying? I know I probably wasn't making much sense in that moment, but just clarification. Anyway, moving on. Deanna and Rick would have another talk. And this would not have been the thing since Deanna and Rick had the talk before Rick was properly anointed as the leader. But she wants to know what Rick is planning to do now, since Spencer has just paid the price. She has no living children, and Reg is the only family member of hers left, and the Saviors are still around. What does Rick plan to do? And Rick only has one genuine, honest answer for her. They tried being reasonable, and they tried not being reasonable. there's only one thing that they can do, and it ain't to give up. War. It means that he doesn't care how many of them there are, and this is a far cry from the Rick who knew nothing about the Saviors. But here, he is way more likely to detect the threat that they're in, but does not want to back down. He wants to go to utter war with them. And that is when Maggie's pregnancy advances to the point where she's got to be taken to Hilltop because Pete's dead and Denise is dead. I don't know why I'm explaining that, but the fact that nobody is here this time means that they got to go to Hilltop here and go regardless. So they were already going to go out to the Saviors and everything, but now they got to go out regardless. And I feel that the pregnancy would be like figured out in a different way, and Maggie might have even still had long hair at this point because Enid's not there to cut it. She might have had someone else cut it, but I feel like in this sense it would be different as to how the pregnancy is like figured out, and Maggie might still have long hair. As for who drives, who else is it going to be but Dale, which Glenn definitely would take up with him because how close they are together, Glenn and Maggie. He brings this up with Dale, but Dale don't need to tell him twice. Of course he'll drive. He has been close with Glenn and Maggie since the start, and to not do this for them, even with the shotgun arm and it makes it harder to drive the RV, he don't give a crap. He will still do this for Glenn especially. So they all get ready. And even though Dale's not the fondest of wanting to take out the Saviors, he agrees with Rick. Something needs to be done here along with taking Maggie. So Dale and Glenn go, obviously, along with Rick, Daryl, Beth, and as for Morgan, he's gonna go too. Because no one's gonna leave like Carol did for the Kingdom or whatever, or just on her own. But with Morgan, here's a catch. Because of the character that Morgan's been since Rick snapped him out of that clear mode, and how different of a character he's been, it took him forever to want to even learn Aikido until into Alexandria. So, with going into a bout with the Saviors, knowing what's happened and everything, and killing Paula and the rest because of the death of Owen, that means that he's gonna go hardcore into making sure that the weapon that he manifests kills the Saviors. Like, does it to the point just like he did with that horde back in Woodbury. And this is where the crafting of his axe comes into play. Granted, it's not a Meal's axe, but it is a sick axe nonetheless, merged with his stick. Next is Tyrese and Sasha, Eastman, and as for Eugene and Rosita, they're both going to stay behind. Because, for one thing, Rosita just lost another lover very recently. She's not going to be in any kind of mood. One would think that she'd want to go to avenge the death of Spencer and everything, but Rick and everybody else thinks that she definitely needs to stay behind to, like, you know, recover herself. And if the Saviors invade Alexandria, she needs to be here to defend it with the rest who stay. And Eugene offers to stay too because his smarts could help out and maybe devising traps, or just because he doesn't want to go. It really wouldn't matter. And Aaron, that's all that goes. And with that, the group sets off, not only to go Hilltop to get Maggie there this time, but for a final bout, or so they think, with the Saviors. And after they leave, soon after, the gates of Alexandria are meeting by the group of Saviors that confronted Carol on the road. Hero, Roman, and all those other, you know, little brand of merry men. And they show up, they spill their whole spiel about taking the stuff and wanting to get in and everything. And this isn't the first time I've included them coming to Alexandria, so yeah. Rosita being here, even though she's not going to go to confront the Saviors outright, she is not going to waste any time with the Saviors that are here, gunning them all down mercilessly the second that they get there, and they don't even get a chance to, like, say why they're there or spill their whole crap. They just all get gunned down instantly. But Roman and Hero, like they survived before, survive again here, and Reg is killed by their gunshots. So by this point, it's not Spencer who's the last Monroe family member living. It's actually Deanna who's the last Monroe family member remaining, which is, I've made Deanna survive to long points at the end before, but I've never really had her be the only Monroe left, I feel, so that's definitely a big twist there. And once Reg hits the ground and the two saviors make themselves known to surviving, Jessie pulling out all the stops along with Rosita, they both take out both of the saviors in a quick flurry of gunfire right whenever this happens, and with that, the saviors at Alexandria, their threat is no more. And yeah, pretty much wraps up nicely with Reg being the only victim and the Monroe family being affected differently. Meanwhile, the RV with everyone in it going to Hilltop and the saviors, Dale sees something that he expected to see, and yet not in this way. Simon and a few of the other saviors blocking the road with a beat-up person right by them. And Rick's like, well, now they get to settle things once and for all. Starting with these people. Rick and whoever would come out, I'm pretty sure probably everybody, or, you know, like, not the same crowd, obviously, but just enough people would surround him with guns and say, this is where this ends. And Simon's like, I couldn't agree more. And they would all say to hand over their stuff, and that they're willing to still work out maybe a nice negotiation, but if they push things or try to kill any of them, the business that they are going to start or pretty much demand off of Rick's group is going to go harder than they want it to be. And Rick's like, they tried being nice, and they tried being not nice. He sees that you people don't listen. And any deal that he wanted to make is through. But he is willing to say one thing on the side of no more blood loss. Don't kill any more of your people. This is the last chance that he's going to give the saviors. Shut up, turn around, drive your vehicles away, and you won't have to lose any more of your people than you already have. And that would be a smart decision that your men didn't make. Unless, cocks his head, unless you want more people to die. But then again, knowing your frickin' people, I'd say that you people don't care about any of yourselves or your family or friends or whatever you want to call yourselves. And Simon just lets him talk. Afterwards, seems a little agitated, but he actually listens to Rick, but he doesn't listen in the way you might think. He just smirks and says, you know what? Very well. You really want to go ahead and have a talk? We ain't surrendering, but I'll let you talk to the boss. That's really what you want, and you don't want this to end right here, right now, without meeting him? Well, then we're just going to have to, let you talk to him, right? Well, you get your wish. And then he points out the directions in which NEGAN is and says, that's the way you want it, I won't stop you. But just know what you're getting yourself into, because there might be no getting out. And he just leaves that to the imagination of everybody there. And with that, the group takes the RV to the directions in which Simon gave to go find NEGAN and talk to him, and none of them suspect a dang thing. That is, until it's too late, and by too late I mean they get exactly to the point of which Simon specified that they were going to see NEGAN, and then they get cornered. This is a sort of Eastman twist on of itself, and I'm pretty sure I've done it in a few other stories, maybe like one or two. But yeah, Simon and a bunch of other saviors corner him at every pass, and is like, you really fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. And since you didn't want to do things the easy way, and you wanted to make it difficult with your little dumb ends and peacemaking and all that, now we're going to do things the hard way. And at that moment, Dale, Morgan, Tyrese, Eastman, and Aaron all try to calm the situation down, unified and together, aimed right at Simon, and basically to Simon and some of the saviors around, mainly Simon, to get the point across, like, fully, to calm it down, with Rick speaking out, and then Dale taking up the head and showing a real character progression moment from Dale Horvath, saying that, why fight when there's no need to? Every single person in the entirety of the world has lost so much already. When it comes to family, friends, the world being overrun by the dead and they kill each other to live? Why should that be the way anymore? Both groups, he's thinking more than them, but he's trying to make the moment appease Simon. They've all been maimed, hurt, tortured. They've lost people. They've freaking had people get eaten. Why kill in a world that's already being killed? They need to freaking work out a deal or just leave each other alone. Why make the situation worse? Why subjugate people in this rule? Why not work with each other in a unified front? And Simon admits that he kind of likes Dale and what he's saying, but he ain't gonna listen. Not really. Because it really isn't his call to make. And like he even said, they ain't getting out of talking with Negan. That ain't happening. But whatever happens to their little group or whatever is completely up to Negan. But he likes Dale and what he said. But he ain't gonna agree with it, and he doesn't think Negan is either. So, Negan's entrance begins, with him beginning his speech up until the point where he asks where the leader is. And while he's beginning his entrance, a mysterious masked figure from across the woods, unbeknownst to any savior, any of Rick's group, and anyone at all, is just watching them. A masked lady looking at the saviors and Negan specifically. But no one knows that she's even there and what her intentions are. While that's going on, and Negan is beginning his speech up until the point, like I said, where he asks about which one of them's the leader, Dale, Eastman, and Tyrese speak out, saying that they ain't the leaders, but they're the high council of the group. And they tell Negan that they can work something out without having to put people under rule of another forefront in this time of need. They should be pulling together, pulling their resources as one, not putting more people down or killing them. And Negan's like, he is very surprised. One, that all three of them stood up to him at the exact same time. Number two, because they're the high council of the group. That's fancy to Negan's standards. And for number three, that they had the nerve to stand up to him, knowing what's gotten them into this point in the first place, but not fully knowing what they've gotten into. But after a long silence, Negan says no. For one thing, they shouldn't have stood up to him. Number two, shouldn't have killed his people. Maybe he could call it even. Number three, he really doesn't give a crap what they think. As The Rock would put it, it doesn't matter what you think. I should have even played the quote. But anyways, Negan's like, you step up again, might be the last time you do step up. And Negan just ignores them, brushes them aside, and goes back to what he was saying, asking which one of them really is the leader. And goes to Rick, introduces himself, and does his whole speech, along with the fact that he and none of his men want this, but they did kind of cross the line killing the people at the satellite outpost. And this time, Rick's group is actually more to blame here, because they didn't kill the people on the road this time first. So, it's kind of Rick's group's fault more here. And Negan says for that, they gotta pay the price. Deals can be made, and whatever else, but they're his deals to make, and they still gotta pay. And with that, he says that one of them has got to meet Lucille, his bat, and unfortunately, it's going to be a one-time meeting. And yeah, we all know where it goes from here. Negan begins to pick the victim of Lucille, and Dale tries to sit up again, but they sit him down, but Negan just lets him talk or whatever, but says that his patience will run thin if he yabs for too long. Dale is just like, you can't do this. The world already belongs to the dead. Why forefront yourself above others and not work with more people together? When the world belongs to the dead, we should unite against the dead, not against each other. And this group here, and he guarantees their group too, have already had to deal with groups of people, showing that they should freaking work together. They shouldn't be killing each other over a world that's overrun. And I know I'm making him sound repetitive and sounding repetitive myself, but you gotta think of how Dale would talk to Negan here. And Negan's like, he listens once again, but is like, once again, no. And says that he even likes Dale's appendage, which he sees from a little corner of his eye. That doesn't mean he's gonna listen to him. And with Eastman, he listened. But with Dale, Eastman, and Tyrese at the forefront, he ain't gonna listen to 3 people yammering him at once. No way. One, that was different. But here, yeah, no, he ain't gonna listen. And says that to him and everyone else in the group, don't any of you sit up, stand up, retaliate, or do anything to show your authority towards me again, because I will shut that SHIT down, no exceptions, basically that thing. And says that if they do it again, the first person he kills, there's going to be a victim after. And then he does his eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing, picking the victim. And here, it's going to be Tyrese. Now, the only time I've ever made Tyrese the victim of the lineup is in What If Shane Killed Rick. I've really never included him in the lineup before. I really don't think I have, at least. And this would disappoint and sadden and terrify Dale and Sasha. Dale on the level of how long he's known Tyrese since Woodbury. Number 2, him being a high council member with him even before they went to Alexandria and living through the governor's hell and freaking masquerade at Woodbury. And Sasha, because why the frick wouldn't she? He's her freaking brother. I don't really need to explain that. And because she doesn't have anyone else after Tyrese, because Abraham's, bye-bye, die-die. And yeah, Negan says that he originally was planning on picking someone else. It was a tough call, though, but with him, he picked him on 2 occasions. He even openly admits this. He picked him because him and the other 2 ran their mouths too much. But him, Tyrese, he seemed like the most threatening and not a true moral authority or someone who could pull some kind of humanity in him like the other 2 were. He seemed like he could have been more of a brute and a threat to Negan in the future. And he openly admits this, kind of getting on some people's levels, like you really were going to kill him because you thought he was a threat. He didn't admit this about Abraham, but people knew. But with here, he has actually like ground to stand on to admit it, along with the fact that, yeah, Dale Eastman and Tyrese ran their mouths too much. And that's why he's picking him. And says to everybody, they gotta sit down, and what he said before. And that you can breathe, blink, and cry, and that you're all gonna be doing that. But he isn't gonna mention Carl here because Carl's dead, which is definitely a game changer. And with that, Negan takes the first strike and wha-bang! He hits Tyrese square in the head. But Tyrese's last words aren't "suck my nuts" like Abraham. Instead, he grits his teeth in utter rage, sits up and says, "Now you've crossed the line." And before Negan can even care or register to what Tyrese means, and before he gets the second strike down on him, Tyrese power tackles Negan to the ground. And this one throws Negan off and puts him on the ground and surprises everyone around him, Savior and Rick's group. Because not only did Tyrese have enough strength after that first blow to do this to Negan, but he proved his point that he could have been a threat. He's literally proving Negan right. And Tyrese, holding a bloody head, says that very injuredly, and not even that, like, you can't very well speak the way he could because he has a freaking bruised head now from the first strike, saying that now you're the one who's going to pay. Negan is just utterly furious after being power tackled, but then evilly smirks and says to Tyrese, "No, you're the one who's gonna pay. Because not only did you prove me right, and not only are you proving me right now, but you just made the biggest mistake of your life. You attacked the wrong guy." And wha-bang! He hits Tyrese square across the face, and yeah, Tyrese is dead here. I was originally going to come up with a different line, but I got a very epic line for Dale in the next episode, and felt that it should have just fit for that and not here, not the time yet. But Tyrese gets a comic-like death like he did with the governor, except it is from Negan's bat and in a much more different twist of fate. Now, this would be a very sad moment coming from Dale and Sasha specifically, but everyone in turn, because of how much Tyrese meant a lot more in this story than most of my others, honestly. I've made him mean a lot in some of my other stories, but not really to this extent. And Dale, specifically, would be affected because of how much Tyrese meant to him, like I said. And sadness would not be the only thought that courses through his mind. It would be a mix of feelings, all at once. Sadness would definitely be top on the list, but what would follow would be shock, confusion, bewilderment as to how a person like this, aside from the governor, could just exist in this world, power people on top of power himself above others, and have no regard for killing. And then anger begins to surface in Dale's mind, a feeling that he barely ever felt, but something that was once in his mind. And unfortunately, because of what's just happened and feeling anger, something begins to stir in Dale's mind. It doesn't flash and make his eye red like before, because that's over with. because of him getting the bullet and stuff out of his eye. But the part of his brain that was affected by the bullet's fragments, that still triggered his mind when he just experienced all these feelings at once. That triggered his mind to not flash at that moment, but flash and spark. It begins to circulate through his mind, and his eye turns a full-on blood red. Not a quarter red, not a little bit more than a quarter red, not half red, but full-on red. And now, he is only focused on one thing. Pure, unadulterated malice. And he's not thinking clearly, once again, because of the eye. How will this go into the confrontation with what he will do with Negan? What will happen? How will everyone else react? And if Dale reacts more than he should, will this mean the end for him, with his life force possibly waning on how far he goes here? And how will Tyrese's death further impact with Dale specifically? Find out next time.